Welcome to a special poetry reading by 5 Northfield poets. Becky Boling, Heather Candels, D.E. Green, Rob Hardy, and Steve McCown, whose poems appear in the summer 2020 issue of the literary journal Willows Wept Review. Many of the poems included here were workshopped in a poetry group that met regularly at the Northfield Public Library from early 2019 until March 2020 when the library closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That group includes Becky, Heather, Doug, and Steve. The poets would like to thank the editor of Willows Wept Review, Troy Urquhart, for selecting our poems for inclusion in the summer issue, and we'd like to thank the Northfield Public Library for providing a place for the poetry group to meet. At the end of the video, you can find information on how to order a copy of Willows Wept Review or access a digital version online.
Canyon. Together near the rim, we let our legs dangle, flirted by dropping a shoe, which plunged down to the river, carving its way deep into the earth, raging itself into dangerous froth that would never quench our thirst. Without words, we entertained pushing our souls into the chasm, dared our hearts to jump, hoping we'd somehow fly, knowing we'd never make it to the other side of the breach, prepared to kill our desires. Still, we felt the sun move over the walls, change colors according to light. Green turned to red, red to brown, and then, lost in the vastness that allowed us our place, you stepped off when I wasn't looking, or just returned to the comfort of predictable ground. Waiting for winter. The sun aches over me on the back porch steps, a hard cement griddle for brown crispy ants, cookie crumbs on backs, scuttling up tiny triangles of sand. I poke them with a stick. The pavement, soft and black, burns the bottoms of my feet. Sparrows rest quiet on the oak branch above scorched brown grass. Tomatoes explode red. Air conditioners hum, drip water over wilting geraniums. The pinwheel stands in the next yard waiting, but the wind is still. It never whirls. Across the street at the baseball park lies an empty home plate, dusty. I work a piece of chalk, trace my foot, leave it, try out some hopscotch. The blue sky scalds. I dream of icicles dangling from eaves, snowmen, toboggans, and cross-country skis. The ice rink where I dreamt of ice cream and swing sets the 4th of July. So I ring another doorbell. Still, no one wants to play.
Coda. This winter took all the repeats. April felt like a recapitulation of March, a leitmotif of snow running through the forecast, sometimes the deceptive cadence of a 70-degree day. In April, we listened to robins singing in the wake of the storm, a fugue of chromatic juncos, and we waited for spring to make its entrance, for the last measure of snow, the first note of green in the trees, buds blaring open like trombones in the fourth movement of a Brahms symphony. It seemed like spring would never come, and then it came. Winter's white tune is taken up by the wild plum, and the trees have changed their key from gray to golden green. The snow has taught us not to say, "This is the end," but on a day like today, we know we've begun the season's brief modulation into summer. Shelter in place. Of brown and gray there is no end. It is enough to be silent in the presence of such silence. The chorus of frogs has not yet bubbled to the surface of the marsh. but the milkweed pods open like mouths and spill their eloquence. In the rain, my body makes the same music as the prairie grass. We share the same pulse, the same quieter breathing.
First of all, I just want to thank Rob Hardy for recording our poems and my fellow poets. And I want to thank the editor, Troy Ukehart of Willows Wept Review, for accepting our poems for publication. This first poem is called Against the Current, and it's set outside of Winona, Minnesota. At the far end of Latch Island, we saw leaves on water, a bushy crown, an emerald-haired river god emerging, rising slowly. The full headdress was buoyant, yet fixed, still connected to its splintered trunk on shore. The fallen tree rode the Mississippi in place. We swam upriver for it, this floating anchored nest, changing styles constantly, butterfly, breaststroke, backstroke, muscling the current that bullied us backwards, sideways, down. We wanted the tree to hold and keep us, to entwine limbs and branches, our hands and leaves, to fight for our watery position. But when we thrashed into the nest, grabbed the crown, dragonflies flew up, a cloud with 1,000 wings, a dark firestorm pelting and blinding us. We let go. Next poem is entitled Birding, and it's dedicated to my mother. We walk daily, hourly, from the memory ward to an aviary, from your dark room down 3 white hallways, past residents staring at nothing, at ghosts, to a door whose code only I know. I unlocked the maze that has locked you in. We shuffle to a framed glass cage crammed with color, flitting movements on twigs, brief flights, finches imported from Africa and South America, their flamboyant captivity capturing us. We are silent. In lieu of words, muted songs. Then we return to your wing, repeat the ritual, return again to the brightness of birds. Next poem is entitled Lacerations. From a Mississippi sandbar, I jumped on iron. The river's tooth, wading in welcoming water. The tip of a submerged structure, history abandoned, washed over, smoothed out on top, so I could not detect the spike below. Part 2. Defying signs and fences, I once ventured into a marine base, searching for desert wildflowers, only to threaten tank bombs left unexploded in sacred sand. Dark pistols jiggling, an incendiary soldier who tracked and saved me from a dishonorable death screamed, "General Patton practiced here. Have you no respect? Bombs are everywhere. Get out now." What could I say? The pursuit of beauty blurs boundaries. Rushing to part 3, rushing to ply my hooks in the Iron River, I dropped my tackle box and lures sprang out like tangled jewelry of robot innards, including a 3-pronged daredevil discovered missing when I inventoried my compartmentalized barbs that night. Often I think of a waiting child or a dog, a wolf, a moose, bending to drink fresh Wisconsin water with a metallic glint. 4. Blood bubbled up from my lanced foot, merged with other red tributaries in a grand waterway flowing gently, peacefully over our iron works.
I'm Becky Boling, and I have 3 poems, and I want to thank Rob for putting this together and for Willows Wept Review for publishing these 3 poems. The first is Garden of Benign Neglect. We bought a garden that came with a house. We bought it in summer when rose bushes bloomed. Robins and sparrows gathered at feeders, waded through rainbow pools in terracotta basins. The elm hovered above house and yard, gathered us like errant chicks under its bower, ferried squirrels from canopy to canopy. It sifted sunshine and raindrops over us all. But we had no talent at green things, no patience with suet and sunflower seeds. We pulled out sprouting clumps of green, assuming they were weeds. We showered our yard with haphazard love and awkward attention. Like unreliable parents, we gave too little, too late. We still have the house, but the garden has retreated, giving way to the hardier, more common grass-like growths. Birds fly by on their way to more hospitable dwellings. Our diseased elm was euthanized, its remains long ago carted off. We don't know the names of what's left. They come and go as they please. Fortunate, they have no need of us. The second poem, Stand of Walnuts Illuminated by an Afternoon Sun, is inspired by our son Zachary Bowling Green's photo of 3 walnut trees in our backyard and the afternoon sun blazing off of the trunks in 3 columns. We stand in sun blanches, our trunks stretch into sky, gilded by sun drenches, roughened bark, branches stretched. Squirrels climb, cling to branches, reach, grasp, wind buffets, leaves sift sky. We stand in sun blanches trunks. Leaves shelter shadows in air, we anchored in soil, grip sun glares, we stand in sun blanches. My final poem, Owls, is based on an event in the neighborhood where there was a nest of owls and the neighbors passed by daily visiting them. Part 1. The owls were out in the tree yesterday. People milled around, tugged on recalcitrant dogs, herded flocks of children. Heads turned at uncomfortable angles, knees and feet wobbled for purchase. We stared through leaves, infused life into crisscrossed limbs and gnarled wood, until at last we honed in on the objects of our gaze. Above us, wings flexed, heads swiveled, cautious, inhuman eyes stared down at us. Predators, aren't we all? Why do we stand transfixed? Risk vertigo, swaying branches rock us on our heels to catch a glimpse of a raptor and its young? What drama is this that does not so much unfold as stop time in freeze frames, leaving us to spin on our axis, vibrations on a taut wire? We long to transgress the urban landscape, escape the squared corners of our edifices, the flat pavement of our roads. Two. On green branches, downy-backed owlets test claws, practice silence and stealth in plain view. The show begins, audience rapt, necks craned. From their wooden hollow peer fuzzy-winged raptors. We hold our breath. iPhones digitalize, post and share, frame by frame their frozen stare. flotsam caught in the eddy of a stream, couples, families, lone walkers, eyes tangled in the canopy, anticipate the scene. Some drift off, others arrive, search for the best angle. Clustered beneath the boughs, we whisper, testify, conjecture, bit players awaiting our cue. An adult owl hovers several trees distant, emits a deep throaty call, a febrile high double time note, an invisible tether flung over our pivoting heads to the nest above. 3. Where? Fingers point, eyes strain. Each visit requires a new orientation. We share the role of guide, inheriting knowledge, passing it on. There, alone, the owlets, less fuzz, more wing, move about in patterns, up, down, across. No one stands guard, except those of us who come each day to mark their change. Soon, we say, we'll come to find them gone.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks for doing this. Thanks to our Northfield Library group, too, where many of these poems originated. And Troy, of course, at Willows Wept, and Heather in our group who introduced us to that journal. The first poem is dedicated to Becky Boling, who's right downstairs. Quarantine Diary, the 6-foot marriage. My wife and I have always lived apart, together, so the present moment doesn't seem so unlike the past. She works in casa and nearby, while I'm a far-flung commuter to the twin metropolis up the highway to the north. She lunches alone in town, typing in a booth. I, at my distant office desk, gaze out the window, sighing over our separation. It isn't legal, just the condition of our lives. It's how it's always been, even how perhaps we've come this far. Together, sort of. She sits facing me at the far end of the table. I peer at her over my laptop screen and hers. We're affable enough and kind. She fetches our morning coffees. I pour the refills, milk for her and soy for me. We have always kept this social distance, sociably, each doing what we do, apart, alone, together, until a bit before midnight, we climb the stairs and lie comfortably together, side by side. The second poem is called Like Life, and it's in memory of my late student, Vidal Guzman III. When you look over the sea of their faces, so various and beautiful, their brown, white, tan hands surrendering their phones to class and waving as they bend their heads toward each other in mirth and sometimes worry, you want to save them all. You want to make the world behave the way it should for these so young, so vital, so promising, like the one who isn't here today. You're not sure why, whose name sounds like life. You want to save them all, but that is not a job. That is not your job, and you know you can't, even though you want to so badly that you can taste the salt sea of frustration when you think about and feel, as you must, their struggles. Today, you think of the one whose name sounds like life, who has turned to the sea and called back to you and the whole group. I have had a vision and I want to share it with you. The waves pound the shore before him, though he has turned his face back to us standing well behind him on that shore. This is how you'll always see him, This is how you hope they'll always see him. Magnificent, like the mountain behind us, like the sea before us, like the sound of his name, like life. And the last poem is a persona poem based on an image that was at NPR. It's called Mother at the Window. When Mama was young, we spent summers by the sea. She cleaned guest rooms at the small resort where we had a basement apartment with a high window facing the main beach road. Mama let me trail her through the rooms as she worked. Sometimes she would pause to rest at the sill of an open window, a fresh sea breeze riffling a stray strand of hair, a hint of longing in the arch of her back. Thanks.